So, Stefan, we're going to get started. Give us a sense of how the deal between the EBU and UEFA came about.
Yeah. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. How did it come about? So, first and foremost, I think women's football is at the heart of public service media across Europe, at the heart of the EBU, but also at the heart of its members. I think we're heavily invested in the coverage of different women's sport, if it's the Tour de France, the female Tour de France, or Women's World Cup 2023 are good examples. And effectively, many of you might remember that there was this sort of blackout situation for the FIFA World Cup 2023, where in the big 5 markets across Europe, there was a threat of a blackout until a few weeks before the kickoff. We tried to help to overcome that, and I think at that point in time also we've had parallel discussions with UEFA and CA11 that did not want a situation like this to occur, obviously, for the Women's Euro, and they were keen to have an earlier, let's say, solution or clarity on the right situation.
And Glenn Collane at the EBU described it as unprecedented in terms of broadcast reach. Can you give us an idea of which EBU members are involved, and also what content you will provide to those members?
Yeah, so the agreement overall is, so the EBU agreement covers 34 EBU members, so that's the public service networks of each territory. They cover 37 territories overall, some of them, like, for example, SRG in Switzerland covers also Liechtenstein, so that's why there's more territories than public service members. SRG is part of our deal, which is the host broadcaster of the Women's Euro, the home broadcaster of the Women's Euro. We also have the BBC and ITV for covering the UK, AAD and ZDF for Germany, and NOS for the Netherlands, and yeah, many others as well.
Fantastic. And you've got a slide to show us as well, which is going to help to explain a bit about Eurovision Sports and where that fits into this.
Yeah, exactly. So I think obviously so we spoke for a long time with UEFA about what they want to achieve and why. I mean, it's also why to have the EBU involved, right? We don't always get involved just for the sake of it. Many of the football deals are also made directly with broadcasters or directly with our members without the involvement of the EBU. In this case, I think what we could bring to the table was a very comprehensive coverage across Europe. Coverage meaning we promised to broadcast 1 match per match day on free linear television across the footprint. That sounds pretty simple, especially if you look at the UK, if you look at Germany or other, let's say, major markets. But part of our deal is also Armenia, Georgia, Bulgaria, Moldova, countries where women's football doesn't have the reputation of following, as for example here. And it is quite risky for people there to take the decision to say, okay, we put a women's football match in prime time on our one and only general interest channel in the territory, particularly if your national team is nowhere close to even qualifying to the event. So that was one of the achievements, and then the second part to that is that we said, okay, all matches will naturally be covered live, and here we positioned Eurovision Sport, which was launched last year, and we thought it was an excellent strategic fit, because what Eurovision Sport is, it's a free streaming platform that we have, a free OTT service that complements the coverage of the members. And I think in this case it really shows the value, because we said, okay, we will take on the coverage of those matches that maybe the members do not want to transmit, and we're speaking a lot about obviously the smaller territories, so we can centrally provide the coverage. And as you can see on the slides, the platform, and that's the uniqueness of Eurovision Sport, has different sort of integration levels with the members' networks. And be mindful that the platform was launched last year, so a lot of this is in progress. We have more than 50 members that we have to talk to, with each individual member about integration. That could be in form of a link, if you just have sort of a cooperation on a per event basis. Example for this would be you have an athletics event, and let's say France Television covers the evening sessions, but all the qualifying events in the mornings are not necessarily covered, not because of they don't have the distribution means, but because perhaps of lack of resources. You know, I mean, typically broadcasters have a lot of rights and they don't have the capacity to produce everything. So we would say, we come in the morning sessions and you basically, you know, link to Eurovision Sport as a coverage. Some other integration examples are more permanent. So we have localized content where, for example, we have permanent media cards where, again, I think there's a France Télévisions example, sorry for being so French heavy here. So that links constantly to the content that is available localized on the Eurovision Sport platform.
And so, just to ask you about the localized content, to what extent is that localized, and how are you kind of tailoring that for, you know, those countries that you just mentioned? You've got a variety of kind of interests, and as you say, some will have qualified, some won't have qualified. So how do you kind of tailor that to those audiences?
And I think this is the most important piece moving forward, and also for the success of the project, because what also the federations are interested in, what FIFA, what the UEFA would be interested in, is like, hey, we have our own streaming platforms, right? Why do we need Eurovision Sport? It's really about this localized portion that makes it interesting, about the seamless integration, whether you are then on the members channel or on the members channel through Eurovision Sport, wouldn't make a big difference, right? How do we achieve that? I mean, there's sort of a hybrid model. I mean, obviously for commentating, the most natural thing is still to have sort of a remote commentary. We use young talent. We also work closely with the EBU Academy, which is sort of a program, an academic program, where we bring together talent from different broadcasters across Europe, and sometimes we have projects on bespoke events. But then we also heavily looking at AI. AI is at an EBU level very high up on the strategic agenda. As you can imagine, does it make sense for each national public service broadcaster to, you know, try to find their way in AI individually, or is that something that you could scale to European level and be far more relevant? And that's not only related to broadcasts, sports content, that's related, you know, to the organization, to broadcasting, to news, to whatever.
So how are you using AI? How are you using it at the moment, and how might it be used in a situation that you described here?
So it is developing. We are currently doing a lot of testing on AI. We don't have currently the solution to say, yes, we can just switch it on and we have an AI live commentary in 12, 15, 20 different languages. We actually do see quite good results on the non-live content, and that starts to be looking very good. I think there is still a lot of the problems when, for example, you translate, and I give that example from a French commentary, which has a very imaginary language, so a lot of images, lots of, you know, special ways of saying things, and you try to bring this into different other languages, it doesn't make any sense. And all of this, and all of the sudden, something which is a quite good sports commentating just drifts off into something not understandable. So it still has to be fixed. It's still in the testing mode, but I think this is what we need to solve ultimately. Yeah.
And then outside of that match coverage and outside of those match feeds, will there be supplementary coverage that you'll be providing? Any kind of shoulder content, any of that kind of post-produced content to supplement?
Yeah, I mean, typically the EBU is not a production company, right? So we are not, as a broadcast union, we are not there, and we don't try to compete with Hive or any of the UEFA productions or the productions of our members. What we do have is we have a Eurovision News Exchange, which is a news service, right? And that's one of the most, let's say, important things also to our members. And it's integrated with the news side of things, because not necessarily the sports departments and the news departments are actually so aligned and coordinated. It's far more easier for editors from the news to take stuff from the news exchange and use it in their programming. So what we will provide, I mean, obviously match highlights for news purposes, but beyond that, we have journalists being based in Switzerland. Obviously, it's easy for us to travel around the country, take, upon request, sort of interview questions. We'll be present in the mixed zone. We will supply this to our members. And then on top of that, the exchange obviously offers the possibility to exchange content. So if, I don't know, RTV from Spain follows the Spanish team and has interesting content to share, they upload it on the news exchange, and then it can be picked up by the other members.
Fantastic. And just to close off, when we get to the end of the tournament, how will you judge the success of what you've just laid out for us?
Ultimately, the sort of the audience figures will tell about the success of the tournament, and so this is the main metrics. Obviously, it's always important for us how the members perceive the success. Does it make sense? Was it a good tournament? Was it meaningful to have it via the EBU? Particularly the smaller ones that have made this sort of leap of faith to say, yeah, we cover, you know, this one match per match day on linear television. So if they come on board for the next tournaments and say, yes, we want to build on that, that would be for me quite good. And then obviously also to see that UEFA in this case is happy and satisfied with the relationship. I think these are my points. Yeah.
Excellent. Stefan, thank you very much for that. You've got a car waiting and a plane to catch, and we promise not to keep you for too long and for you to miss your flight. So please join me, everyone, in thanking Stefan. Stefan, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, George.
Thank you. Right, we're going to move on to part 2 now. So Grant, Phil, Sarah, please come and join me on stage. So joining me now on stage, we have Grant Phillips, Sunset+Vine executive producer. Just next to me is Phil Bigwood, BBC Sport exec producer. And just in the middle there is Sarah Bucknall, Sunset+Vine head of production. So we've had a little introduction from the EBU perspective. Phil, give us the BBC view on the upcoming tournament. If we rewind slightly, the Lionesses, England's Lionesses, won the last Euros, and they're among the favourites again this time. The Welsh women's team, it's the first time that they've qualified for a major tournament as well. So what impact does this have on how the BBC would be approaching things from an editorial perspective?
I think the first thing to say is follow that. You know, I've been fortunate to do this job for a long while, looked after women's and men's major tournaments, and it's the first time England have actually won anything. So going into this one, it's like, right, how do we, you know, we've got record audiences, you know, participation amongst girls playing football, everything was up. So we've got to sort of up our game for this one. We'll be based around Salford, just up the road here, with S&V. It's a key tournament for us. We've got a plan over the summer across BBC Sport to do a women in sport season. So kicking off with the FA Cup final on the 18th of May, right the way through to the Women's World Cup in the autumn. There's a whole sort of strategy of programming planned, and the Euros in the summer is sort of the major focal point of that. So it's a critical piece in the jigsaw, and then with Wales coming into it as well, an S4C for the Welsh language. So for the BBC as a whole, it's a vital event for us.
And what are your hopes for the tournament?
I would have liked England and Wales to have been in a better group. It's a tough draw for both teams, but fingers crossed they can come through that. It's a simple answer, but I just really like to be able to build on what we did last time. I won't throw loads of stats out, but we did lots of audience research, and like over 80% of people said off the back of the last Euros their perception of women's football improved. We would like to keep that momentum going. There's a whole load of ideas around our coverage, around what we may do, which I'm sure we'll get onto with the guys. But it's just trying to upgrade what we did last time as much as possible. There's no denying it's going to be tricky because whether it be audience figures or the sort of attention on the tournament, it is related to how well England and Wales do. So you're a little bit in the lap of the gods in terms of that, but fingers crossed, all goes well on and off the pitch.
And you're sharing rights with ITV.
Yeah.
Do you have much of a sense of how ITV will be approaching things from a kind of editorial perspective, and how much kind of sharing is going on in the build-up and then during the tournament as well?
Believe it or not, we actually get on really well. There's lots of conversations going backwards or forwards. I mean, for obvious reasons, we wouldn't expect to share editorial plans, but I suspect their approach will be very similar to our approach. There's a lot of work going on at the production management level in terms of regulations in Switzerland, logistics, what we can share across the board, because the way the sort of the PICS process works with us and ITV, it's the first event, don't forget, women's event that's been shared. So, we've been into this situation on the men's events for obviously many years, but for this one, we've got 16 live picks, each with the final shared. So for the knockouts, we don't actually know what games we've got until a couple of days beforehand. So that's where you'll be having conversations with them around, right, what can we share, what can we do technically, and those sorts of things.
And will there be much sharing of technical resources? Because that's something you've done in the past with ITV.
Yeah, so, back at the Qatar World Cup, there was a lot of shared facilities at the 8 stadiums and within the IBC. This tournament is different because there isn't the IBC as such. ITV be in London, we're just going to be just up the road here. So it is different. So it's more limited, but those conversations are still going on, and we're looking to share as much as possible.
Perfect, thank you. And Grant, Sunset+Vine appointed as the production partner. Can you just give us an idea of, from your perspective, because you'll be leading that for Sunset+Vine, what's going to be important to you from an editorial and a creative perspective?
Well, I suppose first of all to recognise its magnitude, this event, and its importance in the calendar. It's obviously a big deal for the BBC and of course Sunset+Vine. We would, as modestly as possible, try and say that we deliver some of the biggest football content there is going. So we're well versed in it, and we're also well versed in the women's game, both myself personally and our team in Glasgow. It's a Scottish Sunset+Vine production. We cover women's football every single week, so it's a big event, and it's one that we're taking very seriously.
Yeah. And you'll be embedded with the BBC. So what impact does that have on the approach that you'll be taking and how you'll be setting things up?
Well, we've had a few meetings with all the various departments. We've been on site visits, so on, and it's a big, important. It grows our army. We've got a very big, strong production team now. Not only are we all fighting for the same material, we're all helping each other, and I think that is a big kind of grown-up way to deal with the production side of things.
It's just worth saying that was a key part of from our side, in that S&V are going to be embedded in Salford alongside our digital teams, audio teams, the website and everything else. So that was a key part, because S&V are responsible for delivering the linear TV aspect of it. And we've obviously still got wider teams, and as you can imagine, there's so much crossover, so that was a crucial thing for us.
I think you talked about sharing resources with ITV, but we'll also share a lot with existing BBC departments. So the BBC Wales team will have a huge presence with the Wales camp, obviously, all being Welsh. So instead of us sending a separate crew, we'll kind of really integrate with that BBC Wales team, and they'll almost become part of our production as well.
And what facilities will you have on the ground in Switzerland? How much is being done remotely in Salford?
So the production gallery will be in Salford, in Key House, and we'll have camera and kind of timeline are our facilities providers. So on-site pres for various matches, but with feeds being sent back then to Salford with the whole production team. Back there, we'll have on-site commentary for more matches than maybe we originally thought, with such a huge pool of BBC kind of on-screen talent in the country, fulfilling radio and other obligations. We'll utilise them on the ground as much as possible as well.
And what in the way of unilateral facilities as well to kind of supplement that host coverage? What's the plan there?
Well, when we're on site, we're adding our own camera so we can have bespoke images for the home nation, whoever they may be, and obviously supplement our production with these pictures. And also we're able to utilise pitside positions, maybe get relevant guests to join our programmes. Yeah. So is it going to be predominantly pitch side for Pres? No. When we're on site, we will have a platform in the gods, but we will also have the ability to have a pitch side.
Yes, what's worth saying on the pitch side, yeah, there would be an aspiration where we can, but because of the fact that that area needs to be cleared 15 minutes before kick-off, and then it's only got a limited window at half-time, it's when the fact that the BBC doesn't have commercials comes into play and affects us, because we wouldn't be ready to go. So that's sort of part of the thinking, and therefore we're, in terms of the wider coverage, we're working with UEFA, and we were on the venue tour a little while ago, so I know Claire and others are in the UEFA in the building. So conversations around what we can share, what we can get from them in terms of the sort of server system, and trying to make it all join up.
Yes, yeah. And what about commentary as well? Is that going to be, are we going to be seeing that done, any of it remotely or all in the stadium? How are you going to approach that?
So a mix of both, on-site, then sending commentary back over kind of IP internet feeds, and other matches done from Salford. So really going, as I said, going where the kind of on-screen talent and the commentators will be to get the best out of them.
We had a session earlier today at the very, very, very start of the Football Summit, a workshop on the issue of sustainability in production, and obviously it's something which is hugely important, within production, society as a whole. How are you going to tackle that for a production of this size? Obviously, you've spoken about the kind of remote operation, but where does sustainability kind of rank, and where does it fit in, and how do you address that as a topic for a tournament like this?
Well, following on from the BBC's commitment from the men's Euros in Germany, we kind of made that commitment then for all the production team to travel via train out to Switzerland. So very doable, a bit more time, and certainly a lot of Eurostar booking going on at the moment. But kind of travel, as we see with so many productions, makes up such a huge part of the kind of carbon emissions. So eliminating international flights as much as possible really will make a good dent in that.
I mean, there has been a fundamental change in the BBC and the BBC Sports approach in the last, I would say, sort of year or two. And the importance of sustainability, when myself and others are going into our options analysis meeting, outlining the various ideas we've got for the production, that is right at the top. Almost on occasion, sometimes more than budget, just to ensure that we really sort of set the tone, and we hit all those targets.
Yeah. And I mean, you've spoken about travel. Are there any other areas that are kind of top of the list when it comes to being able to work on sustainability?
Any editorials?
Well, editorial is a big part of it, so we have to find some ways to bring sustainability into some of our pieces and our language, our commentary, information we pass to commentators, our presenters. So, it really is a full kind of 360 approach. It's no longer can we kind of be swept under the carpet. We're taking it very seriously.
Yeah. One of the points that came up in the workshop earlier was about football fans not wanting to be preached at, and so how do you make sure that it's kind of balanced among the analysis and among the kind of coverage of the game? It must be a bit of a challenge.
It certainly is a challenge. I'll challenge you to come up with a few ideas if you've got any. But of course it's a challenge, and we're not looking to preach to anybody, but it's on all of our producers' minds, and we, across all of our sports coverage, we do deliver.
Yeah.
I think kind of we've got some studio images for a bit later, but it's bringing, you know, Switzerland is a beautiful country, big outside, kind of outdoor living experience, and it's promoting that and keeping it part of the conversation. It's not doom and gloom. It's all, you know, going to the dogs, but it's, you know, showing the natural world, just keeping it in the conversation. That keeps it in people's minds and the forefront of their
So I suppose
thoughts.
showing that progress and,
I mean, we'll attempt to do that from the first frame of our titles. That's part of our promotion, is to celebrate Switzerland and all its outdoor life, and that'll be part of it.
And can you give us a sense of what you will have in terms of ENG crews kind of around Switzerland, and how you'll be keeping track of the teams? And, you know, we saw, I think at the last World Cup, the amount of hours of coverage devoted to kind of following teams around, providing those stories from within the camp, all of that kind of stuff. How will you be kind of trying to treat those angles and share that behind the scenes content with viewers?
Well, that is, you know, I suppose these are some of the conversations we're having now. But of course, with England, we have an ENG team, and we have got access to the Welsh team. And then another part of our promotion was showing off Switzerland with a sustainability crew as well. So we have that kind of within our production, but also the wider group, digital teams and news teams and so on. We've got a lot of access to footage.
And that goes back to also what I was saying earlier about with UEFA and their crews around following each individual teams, because, you know, if unfortunately England and Wales don't progress, a key thing we're going to need to do is we need to build the personalities, we need to build the names, we need to, you know, build that familiarity with the teams to keep the audiences engaged. So, you know, as Grant just said, with the digital teams that are going around, they're not home nations based, so, you know, they'll be going to Thun to see I'll probably not pronounce that right, by the way, but go to Thun and do the you know, around the Eiger and everything else that's there, and take advantage of the UEFA offer as well.
Are there any production or logistical challenges that are unique to working in Switzerland, or unique for this particular tournament? There's
mention of a working time directive that we'll all have to get on board with, which doesn't impact kind of our presentation team too much, because they're just kind of in for the match they do and then get some time off. It's the engine colour teams who are going non-stop, having to take their requisite breaks. Switzerland is always a challenge. It's an expensive place to work and live, I hear. Kind of the flip side of our pledge to have people travel by train is the ability for them to come back. You know, between matches, it becomes a bit nonsensical if they're spending a day travel. So then it has budgetary implications. You know, you're paying people to stay out, you're accommodating them. So again, that kind of sustainability commitment from the BBC, you know, and following through with it is really impressive, and what we need to see to kind of keep that change going.
A few of us were in Paris to sort of follow up on the Olympics and to cover what was going on there, and that working time directive in France was the thing that most people, when we were asking, you know, what are the challenges, what are the things that you're finding difficult, that was quite often number one on their list. So how do you deal with that? Does that come down to purely a scheduling issue and a staffing issue, and making sure that you've got the right people in the right place?
That's it. We just follow the rules. I mean, that's it. With good planning and the ability to say no, we can't do that, because these things are more important. So
that's good to hear, Grant. Yeah, the production management team already kind of working closely with the BBC team, who've got a whole host of other people there, spreadsheets, filling in everyone's hours, making sure they've got their time off. Yes. It all adds.
So a bit more admin, more spreadsheets. Yeah, yeah. Fantastic.
Love it.
Sarah, something you've touched on already, you've got a new studio lined up, and I think we've got a picture of the set that we can see now. Yeah, is that on screen? Fantastic. So, what can you tell us about it? Grant, do you want to...
Well, I'm told this is work in progress by the designer, so make sure I mention
That's not Salford, by the way.
Yeah, and I've also already asked if I can move in after. But, yeah, I mean, you can see what it is. And obviously we're in Switzerland, and we're trying to give everybody that feeling that we're immersed in the country and all its glory. So I must say the studio was a big part of our pitch to the BBC, and I have seen more images, and I think it's brilliant. It's absolutely amazing, the job that these guys can do. It's well beyond me, but editorially there's been a lot of discussion around how we can not only present the programmes with our guests, but also deal with analysis and various things like that. So, we're very lucky, but BBC have got a lot of experience of such matters, so we tap into that as much as we can.
And it was an amazing set in Berlin last year, but prompted a lot of questions online. What's real? What isn't real? Where you actually were. So what's real? What's not real with this one?
Well, firstly, I should thank John Murphy and
Yes.
Colin Hart here
Yeah.
in the room. I can take the credit, and they did the work. But we were very, very happy with it. It's fair to say. So it's sort of building that and trying to develop that. So yes, it is a VR set. Obviously the seats, etc., are real. I hope
The pundits are real.
Yeah, most of them. We're going to do it in Press 2 in Salford. So that's been sort of the ground floor studio, and that's been redeveloped in sort of recent times. So we're going to work out of there, and then this also plays into thinking around looking ahead to future events and tournaments and things. So
Excellent. Okay. We want to make sure that we've got time for questions in case anybody in the audience has a question. Yes, gentleman just towards the back. Just wait for a microphone so everyone can hear you, please.
Hi everyone, I am Xavier Liu from Alibaba Cloud Europe based in London. Thank you very much for the discussion. I have a question in terms of the ESG topic. How are we tracking the emissions, carbon emissions, especially you have productions across different countries in Europe? Is there any technology platforms that you could recommend to the peers here, the team here, to track the emission for ESG purposes? Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, it's still quite a manual process, certainly the way we do it. So we work with Albert and the team there who have a great carbon footprint calculator, but really it's, again, another spreadsheet wonder of tracking everyone's travel and hotel stays, working with our facilities provider to work out their emissions, and the same kind of working with the BBC to work out the emissions for the facilities in Salford.
Great, thank you. Any more questions from anybody? No? Okay. Grant, can you just talk to us in a bit more detail about the production team? You're upskilling some members of the team and offering more and improved opportunities for women as well. So tell us a little bit more about how you're approaching that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a big part again of our pitch. I know Sarah and I are absolutely aligned in what we're doing. I mean, I've been involved in TV production for a while, and it's a lot of the same faces. And the question often is asked, have they done it before you hire them? And if the answer is no, then generally they don't get the gig. So we were keen to address that, really, and we've got a body of work in Scotland for a small Gaelic channel called BBC Alba, which allows us, who knew this, but there's 90 events in Scotland that go on that is not on telly already. So we cover that, and we're able to give opportunities. We can train our team. We've got some seasoned hands as well, and we've got some students who learn, both boys and girls. And that has really given us the platform to allow these people now to get more exposure at bigger things. Our priority, of course, is to deliver for the BBC. We have to do that. We can't really take too many risks. But using our team in Scotland as a second person for analysis, for example, or a second floor manager or a second ENG camera, that will be really useful. So a case in point is a young girl called Marley. She's just been with us a year, graduated less than a year. She operates the camera, she does the graphics live, she tweets in Gaelic, who knew? And now she's gone out with England, which is, I'm told as a Scotsman, is one of the most important gigs. So that, you know, that pleases me as much as anything, to be honest, that these people get this exposure. And maybe next time, if we do okay, you know, they could be the lead person.
Yeah. And what do you hope the overall kind of long-term impact of a scheme and of a program like this is going to have?
Well, it just creates more opportunity for people, and you know, I suppose in TV we're all desperate to work on the big things, but and whilst if there's anybody from BBC Alba here, it's clearly a big thing. It does allow us to give people good opportunity that they wouldn't get elsewhere, and so from my point of view, we've been doing a similar thing with BBC Snooker, and a lot of the staff have learned loads from people that have got more experience, or they've developed their own confidence, and it improves everything. Yeah.
I think the parity with the men's game now opens up these opportunities, as Grant says, and if there's an emphasis then on using women in roles, in editorial lead roles, in production management, it just creates much more opportunity and begins to level things out.
Well, hopefully England and Wales will both progress well into the tournament, and there'll be fantastic opportunities for all of them to do lots of wonderful things for you. Listen, we've run out of time, so we're going to have to wrap it up, unfortunately, but thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. We're really looking forward to watching the coverage and, seeing it all on our screens. So please join us in thanking Phil, Sarah and Grant. Thank you very much.